Welcome to another episode of an intimate conversation with women of color. I am your host, Deneen L. Garrett, and whether you are tapping in from YouTube or your favorite podcast platform, we thank you. We appreciate your commitment to elevating the voices of women of color. So please continue to listen or watch, subscribe if you haven't done so, and share. The goal is to reach millions of women of color. And in order to do so, we need your help getting us there. So today's guest, I'm excited about because I just learned that she's actually here in the Metro Detroit area, and I was thinking she was in Atlanta. So it's exciting to know that she's a neighbor. So Ryane LeCesne is the CEO, mindset and energy management coach. Her coaching process is evidence-based, holistic, transformational, and proven to be instrumental in helping high achieving women professionally advance. Ryane, what else would you like our audience to know?
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Deneen. And thank you to your listening audience. And it is wonderful to find out that we are neighbors. That's like such a shout out to Detroit. Thank you. Thank you for that very warm introduction. And thank you for really giving voice to women of color. It's so very important to have these types of channels to really connect and share ideas and thoughts with. So thank you for that. And thank you to your listening audience. So some other things to share. I think one thing to share is that I love to tell people I am my own best client. And what I mean by that is I am not only an expert in supporting people really recover or be in recovery, I should say, which is a consistent practice to be in recovery, from mindsets that tend to hold people and particularly high achieving women of color, Black women, hold us hostage, hold our dreams hostage, our professional advancement hostage. And those mindsets primarily in my practice that I see are imposter syndrome, perfectionism, and a term that I have coined from what I see in my practice. And again, I am my own best client, which is the idea that this is my experience too, is distractionism. So I really come to my practice and my business from the perspective of both understanding how these mindsets literally, as a person who struggles if I am not conscious and mindful and using my tools and practicing the inner work and doing all of those kinds of things to stay afloat, I understand what it's like to be at that crossroads, of really of doubt and faith. And so I do come to my practice with both the expertise of academia and of structured coaching and frameworks and processes. And I also come with a lot of stories of personal understanding and many hard knock lessons of my own. So I would like to share that too, that I really do get it.
I like that. And you know what? So we're probably, I do want to know a little bit more about distractionism, but we'll probably get into that as we continue conversation. And so for those who are listening or watching, it looks like we're going to talk lots about dreams. So I love it. I'm very excited about that and to be able to have that conversation because, dreams are very key to my life and my lifestyle. So looking forward to, digging more into that. So
Yeah.
let's talk about how the cycle of fear,
Mhm.
thinking I'm not enough, and shame hold our brilliance and professional dreams hostage.
Yeah, such a powerful question. So, and really a lot of places to go with that. So, the first things that come to mind really are this cycle and interplay of fear and shame. And a person, of course, who is really kind of like a guru or thought leader in the academia world of shame is Brene Brown. And so, if anyone, if any of the things that I'm saying in today's conversation around this, pierce your heart, or you have that moment, that charge, Brene Brown is certainly someone to do a deep dive study in. But the cycle of fear and shame as it relates to not enough. I would say as human beings, we tend to have a consciousness that says I'm not enough of something. We compare and contrast. That's sort of the human condition. And so just naturally, there is this I'm here, they're there, wherever there happens to be. And in that comparison, there can seem to be this sense of I'm not enough. And so we're kind of all carrying around this sense of I'm not enough. And when we feel like we're not enough, we also have then corresponding emotions of not being enough. And so those tend to be fear based emotions like fear in and of itself. I'm not enough to raise my hand to have my voice heard. So fear causes me to contract or causes me to quiet my voice or causes me to um, hold my thoughts in or to maybe dumb myself down. I could be worried. Worry might be a feeling that I have of I'm not enough. And that worry could cause me to really focus on all of the things that I'm lacking. Maybe I don't have the education. Maybe I don't have the tools. Maybe I don't have the background. And that worry is causing anxiety within my system. And so, these emotions can cause us to experience fight, flight, fawning, or freezing. Now, as a high achieving person, of course, our objective is to move forward, it's to achieve our goals. And so there can be this real push pull where one can say internally, I've got this desire, I've got this dream, I want to advance, I want to move forward. And I'm afraid.
Mhm.
And that fear, either consciously or unconsciously, is causing me to respond and act in a way of where I'm not taking action. I'm procrastinating. I'm feeling all of the feelings of fear and doubt. And yet, I am smart and I am a high achiever and I know I can do these things. And so in that like distance between our dreams, where we are, where we want to be, where we can get to, oftentimes we look at ourselves in the mirror, sort of metaphorically and literally, and we say, what is wrong with me? Why can't I seem to make this happen? And the underbelly emotion of that is shame. What's wrong with me? Am I broken? Am I not enough? Why can't I? I keep trying. It seems like it's elusive or evading my grasp. And at the core of that really is a sense of shame and that deep feeling, that warm feeling of like sort of like warm feeling of like being in tears and in a puddle. That sense, it can be very difficult to take action from there, and it's a very sticky trap. So shame is, involved and wrapped in the I'm not enough story for sure at the core. Mhm.
Yeah, and you mentioned Brene Brown. So my Brene Brown story is prior to launching my podcast, I was thinking about it for months, and for whatever, reason, I had a fear of doing it, and I didn't understand what that fear was. And so two parts or points to that. One, I was talking to my coach, and he happened to say, "Hey, you and I can say the same thing to the same audience, but your voice will resonate with them." Okay, so in other words, you have something to say, there's an audience for you. I'm like, okay. Then I got on a treadmill and I was reading, it was Brene Brown's book, and I believe it was Daring Greatly. And the first chapter, like the first, like at the top, she has like quotes, and it was one about vulnerability, and I'm like, that's what it is. I have a fear of being vulnerable, like that the podcast has to look and present a certain way. And that was holding me back. And so once I recognized that that's what the fear was, the next day, as I say, I just Nike'd it and I did it. And so here we are 2 years later, 2+ years later, and it's an audio and a video podcast. So yes, definitely tap into Brene Brown.
Yeah, Deneen, if I can, really picking up on what you just testified around, which is the power of coaching. And if I can, this is not so much a plug for me as much as it truly is a PSA around the power of coaching
Yeah.
and how important it is for anyone, in my humble opinion, who has a vision, has a dream, to have a what I call a brilliance team member, your coach. I'm a coach. I'm sure that is so much of what you do. And in your work is promote other people's ideas and support them. But we unconsciously get in our own way. We have blind spots and we don't even know it. And what I heard in your beautiful story, and I have one very similar, is with my own coach. It's so funny, is not really even recognizing in being so close to it. You had this podcast, you wanted to do it, you knew it was there. I'm sure you could even see it, taste it, feel it. And yet that fear, it's so visceral, it's so real, it holds us, really holds us back. And your coach, someone who you built a trusting working relationship with, you were talking to about this dynamic. Their expertise is to listen for the fear and to hold it for you and say, I hear that you've got this thing you want and this behavior that you're doing. What's the disconnect here? Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize how afraid I was of my dream. And now that I've like called it out, awareness is curative. Now that I know, I can do something about it. And that's the power of coaching. It is so, 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 so important. And as people of color, as women of color, we are over indexed and we are underrepresented in coaching, meaning we're overworked, we're overtaxed, we're over all the things, and we're under supported. We're under supported. And Deneen, I am so happy for you. I'm happy for your podcast, and I'm happy for everyone who's listening, because your trust in yourself way back when you got your coach helped you plant those seeds of progression so that you can launch forward. I mean, it's so very powerful. So everybody out there, if you don't have a coach, I'm telling you, get one. We heard it. We heard it. And I didn't even have to give a plug for it. It's so powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you talked, a lot about shame. And so that's something new. And in my conversations, it hasn't really come up before. So let's talk a little bit more around that. Like, is there a way to pinpoint, like, what is the catalyst or what is really behind this shame? Is it the same shame with the women that you're experiencing, or is it, different shame or different, you know, bed grounds for it from different women?
Right. No, that's such a great question. What is this thing called shame? And essentially, shame is something that we're looking to hide from. It can be um, one, it's something that we're looking to hide. It's that feeling where you're looking to hide. You're looking to melt away into the background. You are hoping that you are not caught, because essentially you feel caught internally. And it can happen, in so many subtle ways, because it is such an internal experience. What causes shame for one person is not necessarily going to be the same thing that causes shame for me. It's based on oftentimes our own insecurities, our own vulnerabilities, as you spoke to. What's going to make me feel vulnerable? What Again, it's incredibly individual. But at the essence of it, again, this link between feeling like I'm not enough, and at the core of that story, if I'm not enough, at the base of that is shame, right? And now it doesn't have to be. It can, the conversation can be reframed. When it's reframed essentially from a comparative standpoint to either a collaborative standpoint or a standpoint of appreciation, can be an example. So meaning, let's say as an example, I am looking at you as a role model. You have a podcast, as an example. Let's say I want a podcast. Now, I could look at this as a competition or a compare and contrast experience where it's comparing. I'm not enough. I don't have it. I can't get it. All the things in my way. It's not, my idea is not perfect enough. And look at Deneen. She's got this thing and I can't get it. There's this competition, perspective, or this frame that I'm working within. If I'm able to become conscious of that through, really sitting, the same thing that your coach is doing with you. What's causing that fear? What's at the base of that? What would you rather have instead? What are some of the things that are holding you back? On and on. as I am able to come to consciousness of this, and then I'm able to shift the relationship within myself and say, okay, how can I move from a point of comparison to a point of either collaboration or of appreciation about even myself? What can I appreciate about me and my vision? Well, I can appreciate that I've created things in the past. Now I can create a list of all of my appreciations. I can appreciate that Deneen's created a podcast. And if she can do it, I can do it. But do you see how from here, from this standpoint, there's like opportunities and options. There's not that stuck feeling. From here, it's not a feeling of shame. It's a feeling of momentum. It's a feeling of inspiration, a feeling of even aspiration to where that person is going versus, aspiration to where you in this scenario, where you, Deneen, is and where I would be in the scenario. It's more aspirational than it is comparison. So, as we can shift that, if we can shift that internally, it can really help, bridge from a feeling of shame into a sense of appreciation, a sense of freedom, momentum, opportunity.
Yeah. And you know what? And honestly, listening to you, although I was the podcaster that you were aspiring to in your scenario, what I went through back in 2020, I was the aspirer. So I was looking like, there was other podcasters that I was like looking at them and I'm thinking, well, how is their podcast? And then I said, you know what? It wasn't perfect, right? So you talked about the, imposter syndrome and perfectionism and distractionism. And so around that being perfect, theirs wasn't, but yet I enjoyed them. I learned from them. I grew from them, and I aspire to reach people the same way. And so again, I just went ahead and did it. It's like, okay, you have something to say it. Go ahead and get it out there. And those that are supposed to, it's supposed to resonate with will find you. And so, yes,
Right.
absolutely, everything that you said.
Mm-hmm. And everything that you said and everything that you experienced, ditto, ditto, ditto. Times, as many people have a dream, every person on this planet, because we all have fear, and we all have eyes and a mind and a nervous system that compares, and comparison brings in fear. It triggers fear, that sense of like, I don't have. And so, your story, again, times 100. It's not only Black women. And I say that because I work specifically with, Black women is my expertise, um, my bailiwick, but that's because I am a Black woman. And that's because I want to support women who look like me and have backgrounds like me and earn 63% of the dollar and are over indexed and all the things that we know to be true. But our predicament isn't any different than the human predicament, which is I've got this big idea. And in order for me to get from where I am to it, it's going to require me to have some sense of transformation, some hero's journey, I've got to learn a lot of things. I got to put things in action. I've got to do the hard stuff. I've got to do it repeatedly. And all of that for any human being is difficult. It requires energy and effort and focus. And that triggers vulnerability and insecurity. And that creates fear, and fear creates shame. And so it's the cycle. And so it's how to get off of the shame Ferris wheel, how to get off of the hamster wheel. And you do that essentially through, it sounds cliche, but self-acceptance and self-love. I am enough as I am. Something within you, Deneen, said, like, I don't want to be too fresh, but like, damn it, like I could do this, like, I don't know what, only me standing in my way. Like I could do this. Okay. Like push record. I can do it.
Right.
And so it was a shift there, it was an internal dialogue. And that's essentially what I really, really help people do, is to create a different relationship with themselves. It seems like it's a relationship with other people or other things, but really it's a relationship with you and you, me and me. I'm the only person in my own way. Ditto, ditto for everyone else. And so I help people to create those transformations from I can't to I'm willing to I did. And now I realize, because I did and I survived, that I can.
Right.
I can.
And there's
Mhm.
more I can do.
And there's more.
Next.
Exactly. Next.
Absolutely next. So,
Yeah.
you're working with Black high achieving women, and so whether it's a high achiever or not, Black women, other women of color don't always tap into their power and their voices. So what three actions will help them to own both? Now you mentioned two, so self-acceptance and self-love. So I don't know if those are two of your three or if you have three others, but
Oh, I love
how could
that.
a person
Okay.
own their power and voice?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's three specifics that I talk about, but I'm gonna kind of check in terms of self-acceptance and self-love because I would consider those are fundamental.
Okay.
I mean the three that I'm gonna say are like steeped in that, but and those two I would say for me they're synonymous. Self-love and self-acceptance is like maybe two halves of a heart. I don't know, is a metaphor I'm getting.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, oh, love myself. But the three that I talk about are clarity, confidence, and courage.
Mhm.
Clarity, confidence, and courage are three powers that are really, 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 really important. And it's one, clarity is clarity on so many things, but mostly I'll say two things. Clarity, one, on what is holding you back. We've got to really think about that. That is not the only, nor is it even really the main thing to think about, but it is a first thing to think about because we've got to clear that stuff out the way. Your coach could have given you 25 strategies that day to start a podcast, but until that stuff about like, oh, I'm scared. I'm a human being who's like got a dream and I'm scared until that was like dealt with, it's really hard to implement strategy. So getting clear on the doubt, for me, and I've got a story too, because I don't want to just keep focus. Although I love your story, I've got like the same exact story, Deneen. Put me in Deneen's position in my business and the podcast, and my coach name is Tara, and that's the same story. Okay, I called her and tapped into my own coaching, and I said, what is happening? I have done all this stuff, like I'm in my own way and I had this video I was supposed to do. And one day passed, 2 days, 3 days. I cleaned all this stuff. I did all these things and I had my coaching call and she said, did you do the script? No, I did all this other stuff because I couldn't get there in my mind. And she said, I think, what do you hear? And I said, I'm stuck in fear. Yeah. And it was the same. And I say that to say, like, again, one, you're not alone. And two, I don't want to just keep harping on your story, like our collective story of fear here. So it's about getting clear on what is holding you back. Two, in terms of clarity, it is about, and this is where we lean in, we clean up and clear up, we heal the others, the fear, the false evidence appearing real, fear, and then we lean into the truth. The reality you already have is the truth about you. It's your brilliance. Get clear on it and lean into it. Okay. And then it becomes courage and confidence. Confidence that you are enough and courage to take action.
Those are right to the point, right? The
Yeah.
clarity is probably where you're going to do a lot of the work, you think? Is that where
A,
most of the work happens in clarity?
a ton of work,
Yeah.
a ton. Yeah. And it's work that is totally necessary again, because we could get to a lot of strategies, we could get to a lot of tactics, try this, do that. And that's what happens when we have, and this is not a negative by any means. I have a great group of girlfriends. I'm just using this kind of casually when I say this, but when we talk to our friends and I have this idea, oh, well, try this or do that or
Yeah.
do this thing, or girl, you're so good at that, or you should be baking these pies or making this thing or do, it's like, well, all that's great, but what I really want you to hear is that I am terrified and I don't even know how to express what I'm afraid of. And
Mm.
so that is where the buck stops, right? Because you can't do much when you're in the fear response, which is frozen,
Yeah.
you're fighting, you're fawning, you're people pleasing, or you're running away. So it's like we got to deal with the fear first.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And then sometimes we can even just get caught up in the doing of what people recommend and suggest. And one, we don't like it. Two, it's not bringing us any type of joy. And three, is not getting us any closer to where we want to be, because we don't even know where we want to be. So we're just getting caught up in the doing.
Very well said.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So pivoting, and we were,
Mm-hmm.
talking about Langston Hughes, his poem "Dreams Deferred."
Yeah.
But I honor my late sister, author and poet Soul True, by asking about dreams deferred, which is the title of one of her books. So please share a dream deferred moment.
I love that. I love that. Love that.
Mhm.
Beautiful, beautiful tribute to your sister. Thank you for that. And as I was sharing with you that common dream deferred that we shared there, so beautiful. And I share that because that's actually a feeling that resonates with me, is like as a metaphor, is a sense of dream deferred. And I think that people feel that when they, and I'm talking about, it doesn't have to be, a massive dream, but we do have these dreams that feel like callings on our life. They just kind of won't leave us alone.
Right.
Um, it doesn't have to be, I don't know, to save the world. It could be to be, a volunteer I just really want to volunteer at this thing, but I'm afraid, are they going to accept me? Are they not? It's about people walking in purpose, whatever that happens to be. Anyway, my own story of dream deferred. Well, golly. So I told you I am my own best client. So where do we start with some things that I would like to do that are on my list, right? Um, let's see. One dream deferred that I'm really working towards. Okay, so this is fun. I'll say this. So I'll wrap this up in I hopefully a story that maybe it's like a well-rounded story. So one of the things that you had mentioned is this idea of like someone else having your story. There's a person who has a podcast and I want a podcast. There's already podcasts out there. Like, do I have a space? This kind of idea. Well, it reminds me of a story that I have too, where I went to a conference early in my business and it was hosted by a Black woman coach. And it was a huge conference. She had all these corporate sponsors. It was very slick and cool. And I had volunteered not really knowing what I was going to. I was volunteering to like help with registration or something through, I think, a class or something I was taking. Anyway, had no idea what this was. And this spent the whole day, and it was very lovely and very aspirational for me and my business where I was at the time. And at the very end, she gets on stage and she talks about her story and where she'd come from and how inspired she had been to like create this business. And her story sounded something like this. My first coach was my mother, and my mother taught me etiquette. And it really helped me aspire to be my best. And it was the foundation of personal development and really helping people to like find their voice. And from there, I've gone on to launch this business and do all these great things. And I sat in the audience and I got shame.
Hmm.
I got hot, red, my eyes filled. And I said, oh my God, she has my story. That was my story. Not that she, read my autobiography and
Right.
stole it, but oh my God, that is my story. Down to the mom and the etiquette and the like.
Uh,
I remember I called home. And my dad answered, and I was in tears. I said, "Oh my God, this woman has my story. How am I, what? There's no space for me. What is this?" And then he just said, there's space for you. There's read the newspaper. There's like hundreds of people who are doing the things that you're doing. There's a whole, you're on list of everybody who's helping people. All this kind of stuff. Very helpful. So I share again this sense of this idea of someone else having your story. And so one of the things that's sort of an intro into the story, but one of the things that I would love to do and have actually done, and where my business actually started, was teaching an etiquette course. It's the very very start of what I did coming out of college, was teaching etiquette. And so I have this dream of creating an etiquette course that really supports high achieving Black women to feel confident, to feel the sense of finesse, that sense of like, I've got it. No matter where I am, I know which fork to use. I know which, spoon to use. I know where to put my name tag. I know how to hold my plate. I know how to like have some small talk. I know how to, pick up something if I drop it and just feel finessed. And so I am working on that in the background. And that's a dream that has been deferred.
Very
Mhm.
nice. Very
Yeah.
nice. I was just thinking about, so there is a woman here in Detroit. I
Mhm.
think her name is Jacqueline Baker.
Okay.
I think that may be her name, but my son actually went through her etiquette
Oh,
course several years ago.
okay.
Yeah, and it was really nice. And one of the things that just stood out beyond the etiquette is that they had a little cooking contest.
Oh,
And
neat.
yeah, he was inspired to make bacon and bacon and spinach quiche. So he was just so
Mm.
excited about it. And I think he did come in third place and he was the only guy.
Neat. Good
So
for
yeah.
him. That is so great. That's so great.
Yes.
He
No, but
might
I
be an
love it.
aspiring chef.
But
But
you know what?
yeah.
As a matter of fact, so he is a senior in college, and this summer
Oh,
he was like, "Oh, I want to cook this." So he pulled it up online. So he was not baking, but he was cooking like all summer, like whatever it is he
oh my
wanted, he looked
gosh.
it up and he made it. And
That's fantastic.
right, and so I ended up buying him his own spices, and
Yes.
might as well have your own spices because you're doing all the cooking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that is great. A human being, an adult who knows how to cook is going to go a long way, let
Right.
alone a man or a woman. A human being who can cook, they're going to be he is going to be able to fend for himself.
Right.
That
So
is
yes,
good.
I'm looking forward to your dream being actualized,
Thank you.
realized when you
Thank
actually
you.
put that course into action. And since I'm here, I'm sure I'll be able to attend.
Yes, I would love that. I would love to have you in attendance. Absolutely.
Yes, happy to support. So, we talked about dreams. We talked about professional dreams, dreams deferred.
Yeah.
And now I want to kind of, end on living a dream lifestyle, which has been my focus for this year. And living a
Yeah.
dream lifestyle, you define what that is for yourself. It's different for different people. So,
Mhm.
what does it mean to you, and how are you living your dream lifestyle?
Yeah, thank you. That's a powerful question. Living my dream lifestyle. I would say one of the things that is part of my dream lifestyle is a work from anywhere lifestyle. Now, I would love to say that I would, spent a lot of that time in Tahiti, but I have not gotten there yet. However, in the last 5 years, I've had my business for 7. In the last 5 years, we've moved 3 times
Oh, wow.
and we've had a daughter. So it's been so I literally have worked from anywhere, right? And we had the pandemic, which meant we needed to bring our daughter home from school for 16 months. We had just moved. We knew no one in the Detroit area, so it was just the 3 of us for a long time. I mean, it's just so but my business survived. It survived. And not only that, but one of the things as a parent that is incredibly talk about and lifestyle, dream lifestyle is incredibly important to me is to be a present mom, to
Mhm.
be present as much as I possibly can. And my business allows for that. It allows me to work from anywhere and to be present for my daughter while still very much making an impact on my community while also helping to support my family. So I think that work from anywhere lifestyle with my business is a big one.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one because the core for me is travel. So
Mhm.
travel anywhere, anytime. That's main for me. But but you said
Mhm.
something, and I want to kind of go back to it. I did want to end on live a dream lifestyle, but hey, that's how conversations happen.
Yeah.
So with the Black women, what did you notice in the height of the pandemic? So in 2020, let's just say after George Floyd was murdered, what did you notice in the high achieving Black women that was happening after versus before? Was there anything that stood out to you?
Yeah, I think Well, I think collectively, I think just the rawness that was there, just raw, I think we went from tired to raw, tired,
Mhm.
tired, to, yeah, just almost short circuited, and I don't, I think it was different for Black women. I almost backed, to working moms, the pandemic was tough. However, it was not isolated from other extreme social unrest within our community, with our community subject to unrest. And so we were required to go into organizations, whatever those looked like, and to continue to work under the stress of the pandemic. So many people were mothering and working simultaneously, literally like nursing and on Zoom, at the same time, as well as grieving for our nation. So it was like this incredible, when I say grieving, I mean grieving George Floyd,
Mhm.
grieving the whole Trump era, the election, it just went on and
But it was
on.
so much.
I mean, it was toxic.
Mm.
So I think we were inundated,
Yeah.
I just, yeah, I think it was more than tough.
Absolutely. And I would say, so for me, what I know, so all of everything that you said, but also I think
Mhm.
it's, and I'll even use your one of your three C's, clarity. I think that Black women got clarity on our worth and what we were and we're not going to accept, and started, if we were not being served, like that Nina Simone song, like if love is no longer being served, then get up and move. And I think a lot
Mhm.
of Black women were doing that. It's like, okay, so you're not recognizing my worth, you're not compensating me, whether it's financially or otherwise, so I'm going to
Mhm.
make moves. And that's what I saw a lot of. So the whole great resignation,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it, women, I just saw Black women like standing up and like, I'm out.
Yeah, it's such a good point. It's interesting. I had a coaching conversation with a client just yesterday, who said that through a program that DEI program that's taking place at her work, where I'm coaching her through, she said, one of the things that is an outcome is, we know through social context, through experience, through living, we know the statistics. But when you really, invest in time in like the research and understanding to what degree we're marginalized, or even tap into some of the systemic um complexities that take place, she said, I cannot go back to like not knowing,
Mm.
and she said, I have this voice now that is something that can't be put back in the bottle. And I think that that's exactly tapped into what you're saying. She recognized, she used those words, I recognize my worth, I know my value, I'm speaking my value now. And so it's not okay for me to, it wasn't okay
Right.
before, but now it's like intolerable.
Mhm.
Now it's like, oh, well, I no longer, now I also don't feel like I need to be silent. And so I
Mhm.
think that, that band-aid has been ripped off. Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, very good point.
So before we wrap, what would you like to leave the audience with?
Well, I want to leave the audience with I think this idea that if anything that we've talked about today really gives you an emotional charge, if you feel like, you've been read, or like, ooh, I relate to that, or gosh, that sounds interesting, or, I do have that dream deferred, or I do know what that competition feels like, I would really want, you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You are a human being having a human experience, and you're also divine. You have a calling, you have a purpose, and that can be very scary. I, would really, really highly recommend that you get support. And one of the tools, there's two things I want to offer, to any of your listeners, all of your listeners. One is a tool that I have created, which is a quiz. It's a very quick free quiz. You can find it on my website, which is www.inspirebrandconsulting.com. And it's a quick quiz. It's going to just give you a really quick Think 17 magazine, back in the day quiz, around the mindset that may be causing your confidence gap, your number one confidence killer. And then two, if you are like, if interest, if today you're like 1 to 10 and you're at a 1 is interest and 10 is like, I really need some support. If you're at like a 7 to 10, give me a call. I offer a free discovery call for anyone who's interested in getting support and moving past these mindsets and advancing your dreams. I'm happy to offer you that free gift of a discovery call. And you'll also find that on my website, just /gift with that website. So those are two things. I think get support. You are not alone and you're not broken.
Thank you so much for that. So definitely you'll have Ryan's contact information in the show notes. So make sure if you're a 7 to 10, reach out for that discovery call. And regardless of where you're on the scale, go ahead and take that quiz. So Ryan,
Absolutely.
I thank you so much for your time. I have enjoyed talking
you.
with you. And like I said, I'm so excited that we're neighbors. So
I
we
know.
can definitely connect offline.
We
But
will.
thank you so much. And so for those who are watching or listening, again, so appreciate you. Please continue to do so. Share, subscribe, comment, all of the things, and continue watching on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. And until next time, bye.
Take care.